6 when completing the square. When we look at these first set of examples, we are just solving for x. When we're solving for x for some of these, we are going to be able to do them, and without a problem, some of them we're not going to. So if we look at the first example, A, we have 3x squared minus 4 is equal to 68. Get your x squared by itself. Add the 4 to both sides. You have 3x squared is equal to 68 plus 4, which is 72. From here, just divide each side by 3. And we have x squared is equal to 3 goes into 7 twice with 1 left over, and then 3 goes into 12 4 times. So this is x squared is equal to 24. From here, we take the square root of both sides. And when we do this, we are not going to be able to take the square root of 24, so we find the prime factorization of it. 24 is 2 and 12. The 12 is 2 and 6. 6 is 2 and 3. So the two 2's group up. This is going to be x is equal to plus or minus 2 square root, and then the 2 times 3 is 6. So plus or minus 2 square root 6. For B, we have x squared minus 10x plus 25 is equal to 27. So when we do this, we have to use the square root property, which we could also complete the square here. We're going to stick with the square root property, and we are actually going to factor the left side of this equal sign, because the x squared minus 10x plus 25 is the same thing as x minus 5 squared is equal to 27. So from here, we can take the square root of both sides, and we're going to have x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 27, which the 27 is 3 and 9. The 9 is 3 and 3, so this is plus or minus 3 square root 3. We're going to move that 5 over by adding it to both sides, and this is going to give us x is equal to 5 plus or minus 3 square root 3. For C, we have x minus 3 squared is equal to 7. So we're going to start this one by just taking the square root of both sides. We can't take the square root of 7, so it's going to just be x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. Move the 3 over by adding it. And we have x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. For D, we have 2x minus 3 squared is equal to 7. So same thing. We're just going to take the square root of both sides. So we have 2x minus 3 is equal to the plus or minus square root of 7. We are going to move that 3 over by adding it to both sides. So 2x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 7. Then we're going to divide each side by 2. So we have x is equal to 3 plus or minus the square root of 7 all over 2. For E, we have x plus 5 squared is equal to negative 4. That x plus 5 squared is by itself, so take the square root of both sides. When we do this, we have a negative underneath that radical sign. So remember, we're going to pull out that I to represent that negative. So we're going to have x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus 2i. We're going to move that 5 over by subtracting it from each side. Remember, your real number comes first. So this is going to be x is equal to negative 5 plus or minus 2i. For F, we have 4x minus 20 is equal to 5. So we're going to actually move the 20 over. So add it to both sides to get that x squared by itself. We have 4x squared is equal to 25. Then we're going to divide each side by 4. So x squared is equal to 25 over 4. And then to take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to plus or minus 5 over 2. For G, we have x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 49. So we're going to factor that left side to be x plus 4 squared is equal to 49. So now that we have our binomial squared is equal to something, we can take the square root of both sides. We're going to have x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 7. We're going to move the 4 over by subtracting it from each side. And we have x is equal to 4 plus or minus 7. Now, this means two things. We have x is equal to 4 plus 7, as well as x is equal to 4 minus 7. So you have two answers for this one. We have x is equal to 11 and x is equal to negative 3. So with these, since there's not a radical left over, you have to actually simplify them. Your next part of your lesson deals with completing the square. When you complete the square, you are going to take your b term and divide it by 2 and then square it. You'll add that to be your c term, as well as what's on the other side of your equal sign when you're completing the square for equations. For these expressions, you are just completing the square, which means you are finding that c term. Okay, so when we do this, our b is at negative 2. We're going to take negative 2, divide it by 2, and then square it. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, and negative 1 squared is 1. So that would just go into that box there. So 1 is our c term for this one. For b, we have x squared plus 5x plus something. So that b term is 5. We're going to put it over 2, and then we're going to square it. 5 over 2 cannot simplify, so it's just 25 over 4. For c, we have 4x as our b term, or 4 as our b term, so that's going to be 4 over 2. We're going to square that. So that's 4 over 2 is 2. 2 squared, is 4. For d, we have a negative 4, so negative 4 over 2 gets squared. Negative 4 over 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. For e, we have 3 for our b term, so it's 3 over 2 squared. 3 over 2 can't simplify, so it's just 3 over 2 squared, which is 9 over 4. For f, we have negative 6. Negative 6 goes over 2. And then we square that once we simplify it, so that's negative 3 squared, which is 9. For g, our b is 18, so 18 over 2 is going to get squared. 18 over 2 is 9. 9 squared is 81. For h, we have negative 7, so negative 7 over 2 squared is 49 over 4. And then we have 11, negative 11. So negative 11 over 2 squared is 121 over 4. So sometimes we can solve by completing the square as well. When this is the case, we are going to isolate our constant. So move your constant over to the other side and use what we were just doing. Add that to both sides and then work with your square root property. So if we look at example A, we have x minus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. Excuse me. So we're going to move that 1 over, add it to both sides. We have x squared minus 2x is equal to 1. Our b is at negative 2, so we're going to do negative 2 over 2 squared. Negative 2 over 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So this 1 gets added to both sides of our equation. So So we're going to have x squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 1 plus 1. The 1 plus 1 is 2, so this is, and we're going to factor the x squared minus 2x plus 1 at the same time. So this is going to be x minus 1 squared is equal to 2. We take the square root of both sides. We're going to have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 2. And then we we add both sides with that 1. So x is equal to 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. For b, we have x squared minus 8x minus 24 is equal to 0. So we're going to start by adding the 24 to both sides. We have x squared minus 8x is equal to 24. Our b term is at negative 8, so negative 8 over 2 squared is going to be negative 4 squared, which is 16. We're going to add the 16 to both sides of that equal sign, so x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 24 plus 16. The x squared minus 8x plus 16 is going to factor out to be x minus 4 squared, and the 24 plus 16 is going to give us 40. We're going to take the square root of both sides. That 40 is 4 and 10. The 4 is 2 and 2. The 10 is 2 and 5. So your groups are 2. So this is going to be x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 2 square root 10. Move the 4 over, add it to both sides. We're going to have x is equal to 4 plus or minus 2 square root 10. For c, we have negative 2x squared minus 24x minus 8 is equal to 0. We want our a to be 1. Right now it's negative 2, so we're going to start by dividing the entire equation by negative 2. This is going to leave us with x squared plus 12x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now, move the 4 over, subtract it from each side. You're going to have x squared plus 12x is equal to negative 4. Your b is the 12, so that's 12 over 2 squared, which is 6 squared, and that's 36. Add the 36 to both sides of your equal sign. So we're going to have x squared plus 12x plus 36 is equal to negative 4 plus 36. Factor your left side. We're going to have x plus 6 squared. And that right side, add them. Negative 4 plus 36 is 32. Take the square root of both sides. The square root of 32, if you need to bring it over, that's 4 and 8. 8 is 4 and 2. You have 2 4s, so that's going to be x plus 6 is equal to plus or minus 4 square root 2. Move the 6 over, subtract it from each side. We're going to have x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus 4 square root 2. For d, we have negative 3x squared plus 9x is equal to negative 18x. We want to get the x's on the same side, so move that 18x over, add it to both sides. We're going to have negative 3x squared plus 27x is equal to 0. From here, divide everything by that negative 3 so you can get 1 as a. So it's going to be x squared minus 9x is equal to 0. We're going to take that b term, which is negative 9, divide it by 2, square it. That's going to give us 81 over 4. Add that to both sides of your equal sign. So we're going to have x squared minus 9x plus 81 over 4 is equal to 81 over 4. Factor your left, square root your right, or factor your left, add everything. You don't have to add anything, so you're going to have to square root after that. So when you factor your left side, we have x minus 9 over 2 squared is equal to 81 over 4. A good cheat with this, whatever your b term is, whenever you divide it by 2 and then square it, that's going to be what your, before you square it, that's going to be what your binomial is going to include. So it's always going to be x minus a number, x plus a number, and that number is the one that you square to get your c term. So from here, we're taking the square root of both sides. We have x minus 9 over 2 is equal to plus or minus 9 over 2. So we're going to add the 9 over 2 to both sides. We have x is equal to 9 over 2 plus or minus 9 over 2. So these are two real numbers, so we're going to separate this into two equations and solve it. So we have x is equal to 9 over 2 minus 9 over 2, as well as x is equal to 9 over 2 plus 9 over 2. The 9 over 2 minus 9 over 2 is 0, so x is equal to 0. And the 9 over 2 plus 9 over 2 is 18 over 2. So that simplifies to be x is equal to 9. So 0 and 9 are our answers for this one. For E, we have x squared minus 10x, or x squared is equal to 10x plus 15. So we're going to move that 10x over because we want our x's on the same side. We're going to have x squared minus 10x is equal to 15. Our constant is on its own side. So we're going to take the b, which is negative 10, divided by 2, and square it. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Add it to both sides. So we're going to have x squared minus 10x plus 25 is equal to 15 plus 25. Factor your left. It's going to be x minus 5 squared. Add your right. That's going to give us 40. So now from here, we're going to take the square root of both sides. The 40 is 4 and 10. The 4 is 2 and 2. 10 is 2 and 5. So 2 2's. X minus 5 is equal to plus or minus 2 square root 10. We're going to move that 5 over, add it to both sides. So x is equal to 5 plus or minus 2 square root 10. For f, we have x squared is equal to 27 minus 6x. Move the 6x over. So we're going to have x squared plus 6x is equal to 27. Then we're going to take your b, which is 6, divided by 2, and square it. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Add the 9 to both sides. So x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 27 plus 9. The x squared plus 6x plus 9 factors out to be x plus 3 squared. And then that 27 plus 9 is 36. Divide each side, or sorry, not divide. Take the square root of both sides. We're going to have x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus 6. We are going to now subtract the 3 from each side. We're dealing with two whole numbers, so this is going to leave us with x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 6. Again, remember, two equations from here since you're left with real numbers. We have x is equal to negative 3 minus 6, and x is equal to negative 3 plus 6. Negative 3 minus 6 is negative 9, and negative 3 plus 6 is 3. So x is equal to negative 9, x is equal to 3. For G, we have 2x squared plus 8x is equal to 12. So our a is not 1 here. Start by dividing the entire thing by 2. So this is going to leave us with x squared plus 4x is equal to 6. We are going to take the 4 divided by 2 squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Add the 4 to both sides. We have x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 6 plus 4. This 6 plus 4 is 10. You factor out the left, it's x plus 2 squared. Take the square root of both sides. You have x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. From here, move the 2 over, subtract it from each side. You have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. For h, your 2 and your negative 2 and your 9x have to switch places. So add the 2 to both sides. We're going to have x squared is equal to 9x plus 2. Then move your 9 over, subtract that 9x from each side. So x squared minus 9x is equal to 2. Take your b divided by 2 squared. It's going to give you 81 over 4. Add the 81 over 4 to both sides. So this is going to be x minus 9x, x squared minus 9x plus 81 over 4 is equal to 2 over 1 plus 81 over 4. That 2 over 1 is going to become 8 over 4. So when we do this, we're going to have x minus 9 over 2 squared is equal to 81 plus 8 is 89 over 4. So from here, take the square root of both sides. You're going to have x minus 9 over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 89 over 2. Add the 9 over 2 to both sides. We can rewrite this as x is equal to 9 plus or minus the square root of 89, all over 2. For our last one, we have 3x squared minus 24x is equal to 27. Our x squared and our x are on the same sides, and our a is something other than 1. So we are going to divide everything by what a is to get x squared minus 8x is equal to 9. Then we are going to take our b. So like we were saying, we are going to take that negative 8 divided by 2 and square it. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. Take the 16, add it to both sides. So we're going to have x squared minus 8x plus 16 is equal to 9 plus 16. From here, we're going to factor that left side. We're going to have x minus 4 squared, and then we're going to add the 9 plus 16, which is going to give us 25. Take the square root of both sides. We have x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 5. Now add the 4 to both sides. We're working with two real numbers here, so x is equal to 4 plus or minus 5 is going to turn into two separate equations. So x is equal to 4 minus 5, and x is equal to 4 plus 5. The 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And the 4 plus 5 is 9. So x is equal to negative 1, and x is equal to 9.